Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Be a Movie Snob. We're coming back at you guys. Seth here, coming in strong for Academy Awards season.
Coming in loud.
Very strong.
Real loud. I figure if I go loud now,
Fuerte.
I need to know if we peak. Yeah, if we're peaking right away, I can adjust it. So if I have a real
Because it's only going to go up.
It's once a couple Bodhisattvas are in Mariah and Pat.
We don't tone
really
it down
no,
as we go.
Guys, we are here. We are three people trying to become movie snobs. And although 2 out of the 3 of us were raised on the television and movies, we all still feel we have a ways to go to really achieve snobdom, snobbinessdom,
A few
more.
steps.
We're trying to reach out, trying to broaden our horizon. Some of it's for art, some of it's just for to understand more how people tell stories, and some of it's just an excuse to hang out and drink a nice cold one while we watch movies that none of our family or friends really want to watch with us. So now this season's a little different because this season there's a little more interest in the movies we're watching because we didn't pick them.
No, they were thrust upon us.
We were being forced to watch them, not necessarily because we want to, but because as good movie snobs, we need to judge them.
Yeah.
Along with the Academy.
Along with the Academy.
I don't think it'll help your voting, but it might.
No, it definitely won't. They never.
I'm sure we're going to sway some votes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This is going to be the thing that finally gets Past Lives to win that Oscar. Sure, it was a couple years ago, but I'm telling you, it's going to win Best Picture this year. Is that how it works? You can just keep
Is there
going
something
for
in the
it?
rules that says you can't go back?
It's like the Baseball Hall of Fame,
did
right?
literally yesterday bring that movie up with somebody as I was like, I'm still looking for this year's Past Lives.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, you haven't seen it yet, but I've already know which movie is my Past Lives of this year. Unless one of the movies we haven't seen yet. But the other ones are so much more dynamic and shocking that there's no way anything but the movie I'm thinking about right now can be this year's Past Lives.
I think that probably hinted it.
Yeah.
But all right.
Not subtle.
Great.
Not subtle.
Well, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Folks, we have a doozy of a movie today. This movie has won Golden Globes already. As of recording, announced this morning, this one did make the top 10
Best movie.
10 Best Picture nominations. Yes, this made the top 10 list. It also has had numerous nominations throughout the award seasons. Its cast is incredible. Its visuals are stunning. And the director is well accomplished. It's really, it's kind of Oscar baity as you can get. And it's got some religious overtones and undertones, or not even over, it's just blatant in your face.
It's all religion.
So it's
Or
perfect.
that, yeah.
It's trying to figure out what it means to be religious and forward thinking or backwards. Anyways, it's not subtle. Who said that? Whoops. Mariah, what movie are we watching this week?
Conclave.
Mm-hmm. And who's starring in it, Patrick?
Rafe Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, Isabella Rossellini, John Lithgow, and then other people, but you probably
Sergio
don't know them.
Yeah, that's some good ones.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Italian,
Hey.
you would know him.
And a newcomer.
Oh.
Yeah, Carlos Diaz.
Yeah.
He's got some fun facts about him actually coming up.
We should have some good stuff. I forgot to do I forgot to do little introductions, guys. My name's Seth, and I am the video person of this podcast. Next to me is Money Mariah. She is all things money, logic, and hopefully a little bit different perspective from the 2 40-year-old white males. Coming from us from the art.
Not always.
Not always. And also she's quite artsy in her own right, just for the record. Coming to us live via special satellites, or as people call it now,
technology.
The internet. Is the
tubes.
The used to be punctual Patrick. He was a little less punctual today, but we're not going to go into that. We're not going to throw virtual stones or downvote.
We're not going to excommunicate
downvote you on Reddit.
Invalidate my ordination in the podcast.
You're still You're still a man of the cloth.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
good. That's good. And
Yeah, it's good to be here, Seth.
good,
Thanks for having
good to
us.
have. And Pat is an accomplished another artiste, but actually gets paid to draw. Not
Yeah.
anymore. Now you get paid. Do you still draw? I used to draw stuff, right?
I draw at times for my job, but
Yeah.
not mostly.
He makes these.
I let the computer help me.
I didn't get a
That
penny
still
for
counts.
drawing Dogman and Petey last night.
That's a bummer.
I know. They're
Oh.
pretty good.
I bet it looked dope though.
They were very nice.
Yeah.
I should have brought them to show you all, but
Yeah.
next time maybe.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Guys, I think this is going to be an interesting podcast because I don't know if we have too much love or hate for this movie, but I think we're going to have some fun things talking around it because I'm very interested. We got to start out with cold brews and hot takes, and the beers don't count because all of us are at the bottom of our fridge, so we're drinking the same darn thing. So
We'll get creative.
Don't
next
even
time.
mention the beers, guys. Just
I will get
because we'll
creative
be
next
out.
time.
Just give us your hot take. And do you guys mind if I go the first hot take?
Do it. Do it.
Okay, guys, here
You
we
got
go.
one in there.
The amazing thing about Conclave, despite having no story, it's amazing what good acting can cover up. Like who needs a plot? We got great acting. And frankly, I didn't even care about the plot. I was just so intrigued by how good the acting was. So there you go.
That is a hot take.
That is the hot.
I will defend that there is a plot.
Yeah, sure. You can call it a plot. You know what else is a plot? Me going over there and picking up a leaf and throwing it in the trash. So that's about as like how many letter foldings did we have to go through for the plot?
I think 5. I think it was like 5.
A lot of slow-mo letter folding going on.
And
here.
there's an explosion in the middle.
Yeah,
of
and
it. What
what's
else
great
do you
about
need?
all these things? None of those had to do with the plot. Frankly, the plot didn't have to do with the plot, but we'll get into that later, I'm sure. There you go, guys.
Okay.
Pat, you want next up, or Mariah, do you want next up?
Whichever.
Yeah, I can take
All
a
right,
take a spin at
swing
this.
at it. All right.
You already pulled this phrase out, but maybe I'm taking some of the religious under or overtones for granted. But this film felt like an incredibly religious movie without very much religion.
Yeah.
It was like
Which,
it all looks like religion, but I'm not worried about the religious aspects of it as I'm watching it.
yeah, it's not going to mess with your theology, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, yes. We'll jump into that because that's part of the ridiculousness.
Yeah. There's a
of
lot
it.
to talk about with it. Yes.
It's so hard because the acting's so good.
Well, not to recover what you guys have already mentioned, but I would just have to say that the horror movie score, which is very good,
Amazing.
is not fitting with the documentary that we watched. In my opinion.
Wow.
I would also say maybe like the best made documentary I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. You guys.
No, it gets worse.
There's some heat.
No, that's.
I'm glad you're tinted red over there.
That's
there's some heat coming off
that's the demons behind
that
me.
side of the camera.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Does this get warmer in here?
Yeah, I felt exactly the opposite, Mariah. I'm like, thank goodness for the score because I would be so bored.
And this is,
No,
not to say I thought this was a bad movie. This is not,
No, not at all. This is legitimately a good movie that I have some major problems with for several reasons. I'm afraid to go into because it's like we're giving away our big feelings about the movie here. But
let's
do the internet.
Do we rip it apart first? Do we plot
Well, no,
it first?
I guess I'd be
Do we
curious
praise some
without
stuff?
without going too deep into anything yet.
Oh, by the way, listeners,
Did you know
there will be spoilers, and there's a big one, and it comes, I think, at the last 2 seconds of the film. Is that right?
2 minutes for sure. Yeah.
Pretty
Oh
close.
my gosh! Hey, let's build a whole movie around nothing else. What are we doing? Anyways, okay, let's get into it. Let's just get into it.
Well, I was just curious. So, watching it, did you have any clue really what it was about? Were you pretty surprised by what you saw?
I knew.
Like, what is that kind of initial take on, like, you watch this movie and you're like, oh, that's what this movie
Oh, yeah,
is.
no.
Or were you like, no, I understand.
I knew that the Pope had died, and I knew that obviously there was a question about who would be the next one. I didn't know this was a procedural movie, and it just took you through the whole process of getting a new one. Like, I thought there'd be... I just thought there would be more...
something else?
more Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code style stuff or something?
Maybe.
Like,
maybe.
one of the guys turns out to be evil or something, like that sort of... Like, you wait for that reveal?
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get that. Okay, no, not only that. Because I had that moment.
Can we... This is only PG, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
By
great.
the way, guys,
it's only PG.
your kids can watch this movie. They
Yeah,
won't.
they
but
won't,
they could.
and they shouldn't, because then there's
This
more.
is the movie you buy tickets for and then sneak into the
For sure. Yeah,
There you
100%,
go.
guys.
If you want your kid to fall
A
asleep,
bunch of 15-year-olds buying
You
movies.
12-year-olds want to watch this?
Conclave.
Conclave?
Hey,
Yeah.
I don't
look,
know.
Voldemort's in it.
The usher is going to be like, just go wherever you want.
Yeah, I know. It's like, come on, guys, you're not fooling us. So I also didn't know. I didn't read anything ahead. I didn't know what was going on. I thought at first I thought this was going to be your classic murder investigation. Like, as soon as we started, I assumed this was a murder investigation, and that was it. And then, the music,
and parts of it did lead you to go, oh, are they going to dig?
Yeah, 100%. It was great.
Like, what is he going to uncover?
So this is the irony of this movie, which I think is great, actually, because it just shows props to the acting. They make some things that are really not that big of a moral issue to normal humans. Really big deals. And so it's interesting because I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop and it'd be like some horrible situation of the other things we've heard about the Catholic Church in the last 20 years. And that never dropped.
Well,
there was some of that.
I think when you get to be the cream of the crop and you've gone up there for this long, some stuff would have shaken out probably by the time. I mean, it still continued to.
I know, and
but nothing was ever like, oh, no.
So I will say this, though. I was so happy. What made it great for me for most of the movie is that it showed how everybody was imperfect and had this thing until we got little Jesus coming later, had nothing wrong with him, and he lived in all the war zones on Earth, and then nothing was wrong with him.
Did he have something wrong with him?
Well, that's
according to
what? To whatever? No,
the church.
This is so stupidly preachy.
It's the most vanilla problem.
Oh my gosh. I get so angry because if you made him a human, I would have cared. Yeah. But they didn't make him a human. And that's I'm going out with my gripe now, guys. When you have all these complicated characters and then you bring in a character who's one-sided, it ruins the movie. I don't care what's wrong with him according to they made him perfect. And it was so frustrating because I'm like, why did you ruin this movie with a one-sided character? It's the same thing they did with Game of Thrones last season. That's exactly how I felt. I felt as betrayed as the last season of Game of Thrones when they didn't ever make him interesting. They said, oh, I have this. I'm like, okay, so? And I get it. It's a big deal, but it doesn't change how one-sided
Which
this
Game of
character.
Thrones character are you talking about?
All of them. They're all one-sided by the last season.
Oh.
They're
they
all one-sided.
fall under their roles, I suppose.
I guess so.
I don't think I'm as riled up about it.
Oh, I'm so angry.
Because I loved that there was something you didn't know.
Well,
and I was
great.
interested.
Happy about that.
It did help
That's
me
fine.
through the end of the movie. Like, why didn't he go to this clinic? Like, what was it? Was he going to a mental institution?
Right.
Like, I had all these theories. None of them were what were actually came to be. And by the time you find out what it comes to be, you're like, oh.
So do you vote?
Okay.
This is how. Okay, you ready for this?
I was not.
This is the same problem they had when Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. They had to make Sidney Poitier's character perfect because he was a black person dating white people, and so the same concept is what they're doing to this character. Because, spoiler, guys, I'm just going to say it. The character is intersex. That's the big spoiler. And he's also Jesus though, because he's perfect.
But it's also not something he's known about his whole life. He only found out recently.
It's so vanilla.
Appendectomy.
It's so vanilla.
But here's the deal. So I agree, I think, for the general audience. We're all like, I thought he was going to be trans before that reveal. And then I was like, oh, it's intersex. And for those who don't know what that means, it means you're born with both body parts or partial body parts.
Non-specific, it could be
and you don't
present in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And in his case, he had some female part. He had he could have got a hysterectomy. That was what.
Yeah.
He had a uterus.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, he had a uterus. So, yeah, I think to me, I thought when that big reveal happened, and I'm not going to defend this twist or whatever.
Annoyed.
But I thought, oh, yeah, okay, like, that's probably a little complicated. But again, from my external to the Catholic Church perspective, growing up in a, generic Christian, household where we don't have a lot of those kind of rules, I was like, oh, okay, not a big deal. I listened to, shout out, the Catholic Film Club.
Yeah.
They went crazy. They're like, oh, so the Pope is evil? Like,
they were like, cool with it?
This,
or
yes,
the new
they were
Pope?
like, no one would ever do this. It's impossible that all these cardinal, like, they were like, there's no way. And therefore, because the Pope knew about it and kept it going, the Pope was evil. They use the word evil. Right? So it's like...
I mean, he also did dismiss the dean having a crisis of faith and said, no, you're going to...
Yeah. But that relates to another part, which I did kind of like, although maybe they didn't sell it as much, about the sort of chess playing of it all.
That was the best part of the whole thing. And then you get side story Jesus here.
I feel like the dead guy had a really big part in this because he already knew.
I was hoping he was the architecture who's doing it all.
He was. But we didn't really deliver on that in all the ways.
Yeah.
No,
like he knew this guy should be the next pope. And so he put all these things in motion. But I think where the movie didn't accomplish what it set out to do was it made a really what is apocryphal to Catholics.
To some Catholics, to some Catholics, I also read the forums, and to the majority for sure.
Actual Catholic doctrine,
yes. Well,
not the average Catholic, but like the Church.
Yes,
there are rules like the Pope cannot ordain someone who is not a male.
Right.
Like even if he wanted to, he couldn't. That's an invalid ordination, and so the idea that he would. And continue to elevate this person in pectore.
Well, he'd already done it. He'd already done it. Then he came to him and said, I'm taking myself out.
He made him, I think, a cardinal after he knew about it.
Just because they're taking off the...
I thought he had already been elevated. And he came to him and said, I can't do this because of this. Yeah, he hadn't, but he wasn't a cardinal yet.
No, just because they want to take off the Catholic Church doesn't make it okay for them to do this plot point, because this is still vanilla.
Well, but I think where it didn't, they had ingredients because they had Isabella Rossellini's nun character in there, where they could have talked more about how the Church is... I think they tried to show that it's male dominant, and the idea that this character was intersex and therefore, partially female or, not male strictly, how that would be so apocryphal. They just didn't get us there. And so by the time there was this reveal, we as like a more liberal audience, largely probably, you go, okay. But again, like for Catholics who are like studied on this stuff, they're like, the Pope is an evil character now. Like he did the worst thing you could possibly ever do.
And we're just so used to shock value that it would have taken something really crazy. Like he'd been hiding something this whole time. He was being devious about it. But no,
But then the question, I guess, and this is where it's like, mirror to the Catholic Church in a way that again didn't land for who it was meant for. It was like,
yeah, who are they?
This guy's clearly Jesus.
To? Who are they preaching to?
This guy's clearly Jesus. So why wouldn't you vote for him for Pope knowing this? And that to me is where the dean at least had the opportunity to have an interesting debate in his head. Like, well, what do I think is best for the church?
Mm-hmm.
And what am I willing to cover up? And the church has seemingly been willing to cover up plenty of things in its history for the good of the church.
Okay.
And so this one, you could go, he's clearly the best candidate for Pope. He just got this one little thing.
No, this is the other thing. He's not. No one knows who he is. This is the other part that's a big glaring hole.
The fact that they voted him in just because he had a really good speech.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Kind of like,
I'm like, you make these all
that happened.
More. Yeah, sure. But they know who they are. They're not like, this guy came from nowhere. We know nothing about him, and we're gonna vote for him. That was the bigger jump I had a hard time taking. I'm like, really?
That's a thing that happens.
I feel like Aldo and Thomas, though, were both like the other choices.
I guess the closest we say is Barack Obama
for like
when he got
the good guy getting it, and
you have a good speech,
and they were obviously not wanting it, and this other guy wasn't necessarily wanting it either, but he said the right things in the right circumstances.
Well, he
called out the people that were called out the old school guy who's talking about going to war against Islam, and I think it was the right.
It was so obvious that they were making him to be the next thing. I was just hoping he was going to be evil. They to me, the only way to have ended this movie.
I thought maybe that could have been a cool twist. Right,
that was the
twist.
Is
that he'd confirmed somebody that was like so bad, and he can't do anything about
I murdered
it.
Exactly
everyone.
right. And maybe that's too obvious nowadays. But I'm like,
do you know how many bodies are in the Congo right now?
It literally was the Manchurian Candidate. Like I'm like, oh, this is the Manchurian Candidate plot, and it was. It's the Manchurian Candidate plot. Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
Only.
Well, but again, I think this plot point works if they'd set us up to be like that would never happen, but for us it was like yeah, sure, okay,
well,
right. So we don't have this big like
the thing
what
is,
a dilemma.
The thing is that guy didn't even know it about himself until he was in his 30s.
No, I'm not even buying that.
He didn't even know. It was like the dirty secret that didn't even wasn't even his secret.
Yeah. Well, it's all dumb that they said it. Okay, so no, it was too.
Shut up, Mariah.
Well, because you're actually talking about the plot. I just want to talk about how bad it was written.
Somebody wants to talk about their feelings.
I know, right? Well, because to me, I'm like
so uncomfortable.
It doesn't.
How about you, Pat?
Well, I don't like it.
I don't like it at all. Oh my goodness. I just. Okay, so when they brought it to, first of all, they made it hilariously like left and right. Also, they made like the intricacies like,
he wants to go back 2 centuries, and he wants to let women have a stronger
oh my gosh,
role.
It's so hilariously like nobody's like that ever in that. Unless you're president of the United States.
Also having that many candidates that are that close to getting it.
Yeah, they're not going to be that crazy.
And it's jumbling back and forth between 5 different guys.
I think the last pope took a ton of votes. I think these things happen. I don't think they're as political probably. Like this was like, what's the politics people understand? Like, Senate, or House, like American government. Yeah. Where it's very two-party.
This felt like an American government.
So that's a way
thing.
to frame it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very political.
I just felt like I was watching an American government debate in the.
But that's not that unrealistic to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the world is going more left and right, and so the idea that would happen within the church would never surprise me. I won't argue that it is how that is, or that room full of cardinals.
Right.
So binary.
Nobody knows.
Well, again,
they were sequestered.
As much as I'm trashing it, just remember, I was in the whole time, and I'm like, and I was and then all of a sudden, this guy who's the least developed is the main point of the story, and the most interesting person. It just felt lazy. It just felt like a lazy way to end it.
I thought Ray Fiennes is the most interesting person.
100%. He's the most interesting person.
I think it was him following his judgment. Like, where do I take in more information? When do I stop the information? When does this get too much?
I did have this thought.
It was, influence? I would say, it was an unsuccessful Shyamalan twist.
Yes.
I'll grant that.
But you know what I did think?
But it was the best acted.
The plants are trying to kill us?
Yeah.
You know, like...
It was the Nazis after all. So I also think that I could see how this book would be really good. How the book would had to have developed that more, but because with editing, 2-hour movie, because there's only 2 hours, by the way. This movie, as far as Oscar movies go, great timing, and the editing was great. I couldn't believe how into a conversation about who we should vote for among ourselves was so interesting, and I felt so. But then all of a sudden
really
it's like.
good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's honestly the information I never wondered, but suddenly I'm like, oh, now I know how the Pope is selected. Like right on down to like before he gets his clothes fitted, he has a closet and they pick this specific thing out, and this is where they light this thing, and this is where they are locked in, and this. It was actually kind of like,
it's fascinating.
That's so cool
I was
to
shocked
know.
at how much. I was like, yes, let me know all the processes.
Yes,
I'm really, and that's where to me it
crazy.
became like, I don't even care about the political part of it.
No,
because I would say yes, they didn't. Obviously, the movie leans liberal, I suppose, just because our lead is that. But like, Bellini clearly became like a power hungry guy. Like they kept knocking everyone down. Like this is why you're not.
Exactly, which was the greatest part, except for the one
and
character.
so I
they're
liked
already
that. Right.
They're all
But I did like
self-revealing
that.
for the most part.
For sure.
And
Like,
so
you're
to
talking
me, it was like,
yourself out of the job.
yeah, I don't really care so much about why this person, that person. I just like the process and
Love
going,
that.
oh, there's
Agree.
What's the next
That was all
count
really
say?
interesting.
Like
I
seeing how the
agree.
count changed.
Yep.
Like that was very.
No, it was a great movie.
Well, and they have
95% of it.
saying Latin every time.
Yeah.
That, like, God help me choose. Like
The
all
language
that stuff.
thing, I loved
the whole
it.
cafeteria thing where you're all sitting at
Yeah.
your table, like the Frenchies over there, and like
Yeah.
everybody's speaking their
All
different
that
languages.
was gold.
Gold.
Their
Just good
little
stuff.
dormitory, and then they all get bussed over to the Sistine Chapel. And then I was like, oh, this all happens at the Sistine Chapel. I probably knew that, but I forgot.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's interesting. Like, what a weird, crazy place the Vatican is.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting.
Yeah.
All the process part, I was like, I am so into this.
Yeah, agreed.
And then yes, I will not totally defend the ending, but I think weirdly with more research, again, the Catholic podcast I listened to who railed against it, as it would be like they would never do this. I thought you're convincing me that it was more likely this would have happened.
Yeah.
Because there's been cover-ups of things that would disgrace the church,
and
right? So you go,
and in my
why not?
research, I read so many people were saying this is actually pretty accurate as to like procedural kind of things.
Sure.
For sure. This definitely happens.
Someone said like 75% or 80%, like right on.
Can we get into like, we touched on it, the good stuff? Because there's a ton of good stuff.
Oh, so good with stuff. Can I talk about? What you guys want to talk about first?
I want to talk about the lady.
Okay, go for it.
Isabella Rossellini.
Isabella Rossellini. And at first you're like, there's nothing in here for this woman. She barely gets to say anything. But that is a lot for probably her position to even stand in front of all those guys and speak up and say, this happened. I know I'm not supposed to be heard or seen, but
she's 70.
God gave me eyes and ears.
Eyes and ears. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you. And then she just walks it was like mic drop and just walks off.
She's the Blue Velvet girl.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I did not put that together right now. Oh, I'm so not very smart.
She is.
That's so
R.I.P. David Lynch.
weird.
Yeah,
I know that's
I was like,
there's a David
the-
Lynch connection. I was like,
connection.
this is. Oh, that is hilarious. That is weird. Sorry. Okay, and Seth's back. She's 72, by the way.
Yeah. She looks great.
Right?
Way to go.
Yeah. I thought that was great, and maybe there's arguments on how accurate that is or not.
Yeah,
but
probably
it
wouldn't
does...
happen. But it's still a dope scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but even just how subservient the nuns are in that situation, because they did play up like that the cardinals wouldn't even like talk. They wouldn't even say like hello or thank you, right? It's like they probably do.
But when they have like, there's the whole scene with the Nigerian nun who gets brought in, and she's viciously protecting her against, the dean. Even just like this is my job. I've got her.
No, it was a good role, and it sounds like they gave her more than was in the book.
Yeah,
At
probably.
least just dropped her in, so she's kind of in the backdrop of all this stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, she's great. And she's actually Italian and grew up in Rome, so this all was like, part of her world in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I would skip to the lead right away. Ray Fiennes
killed it.
He's so good.
So
His
good.
quiet, sensitive strength thing he pulls off in so many things, where he somehow like seems meek, and then he'll speak up a little louder, although never really yelling, and you're like, oh, easy.
But then there's those
fella.
two
Like, it's
spots
so
where he
good.
breaks down and cries. I mean, he cries a couple of times, but when he breaks down in the Pope's apartment, and then also when he gets upset and he's talking to himself, and he's like, you're a manager, and is just talking like basically like bitterly, like this is my calling, unfortunately, and it makes me really angry.
Yeah.
Those kind of moments.
So good.
Well,
I love it.
And then to me, the other interesting thing which they touch on pretty blatantly, and this is probably to your point, Seth, like when the dean, Lawrence, starts getting those votes, and he's talking to Bellini, is like, every cardinal has picked a name for Pope, and he's like, I haven't. And then he starts going, yeah, what if I could be Pope? Like, and that sort of dilemma where he's like, I just been questioning my faith, but maybe I should be Pope.
Yeah.
All that felt so realistic
So
to
good.
me in a way.
And when he finally does
like,
say, like, pick his name,
John,
like, this does look like it is leaning this way.
Yeah.
I am the
But then
lesser
God
of the
said,
two evils that are left. So
I'm gonna blow up some people because you voted for yourself, Lawrence. So
yeah, the
tisk,
timing
tisk.
of that, goodness.
I think wasn't that the first time he voted for himself?
Yeah.
The window blew out.
Yep.
Yeah. The second he
You're looking
dropped.
for signs from God
great.
in this thing. That
Boy,
probably would
I
stand
just
out
developed
to you.
an ego, and instantly I'm exploded on.
Yeah.
Nope.
Hey man, not so fast.
So here,
And then
oh yeah,
go on.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just Stanley Tucci and John Lithgow are just great. I think they're both great.
It's hard because
It's weird that there were so many Americans.
You knew who Lithgow was the whole time.
Yeah.
But he's so good.
But he's
really
fun.
good at
But he
stuff.
was fun to watch. I mean, like, even though you knew he was all political and power hungry, you're still happy to watch it play out. And like the whole dramatic scene in the cafeteria and him making
he had like
excuses.
a coldness to him, like when he's taking the ring off at the beginning, which apparently that's a whole thing too, so that you don't forge papal papers or something.
Questioning the Pope's like mental state over and over again. Like, do you even think he knew what he was doing when he made that guy a cardinal?
It's good stuff like that. It's the West Wing of the Vatican kind of situation or something, right? And you're like, yeah, I'm into these things. And then Stanley Tucci did a really good job, I think, of straddling that like sort of fake humbleness.
Yes.
Like, I don't even want this, you guys. And then he's like, you gotta give it to me.
It's war.
Yeah.
We are at war.
Yeah.
I thought, like,
I'm not ambitious, but this is exactly where my stances are, and you can tell him this.
Well, and when he got mad at Lawrence for his first votes, like, I didn't realize how ambitious you were, Lawrence. You know, and you kind of go, "Oh, dang, bro!" Like,
yeah,
he was.
Ouch.
It was
you
cool
really
because,
liked
like,
I liked that.
They gave him like two sides. They like developed a character. Oh, sorry.
Well, and
it's like
he
the
had
Skeksis
an
when
arc.
they're trying to figure out who the next emperor is. You know, like,
Stop it. Trial by stone.
It could be me. This is very similar.
I think this is actually a remake of the.
There was no trial by stone, sadly.
So,
that would have been cool.
So
if there was a Pope fight and they were like, nobody knows what goes on in here, and we could assume there's a bare knuckle brawl in the middle of the Sistine Chapel, I would have been like, okay, sure.
Why not? Okay, let's talk about visuals, some camera stuff, lights. Of course, they couldn't film anywhere near the actual.
Yeah.
Because no one films there.
The Vatican's not allowed. Fun fact, right?
Oh,
this is the fourth time that the Vatican has been built for a movie.
I didn't know that.
The funny thing was, like, the Sistine Chapel set, they just rebuilt because it existed at some production studio in Rome, and they're like, well, we just pull this out. And the same people who painted it the first time
and I think they had just done it in 2019 or something. Was the last one? Was it the two popes? Yeah.
And the Edward Berger, the director, kept talking about, like, there's this painted white line, and basically you can't go past that with, like, film or TV cameras. Like, you can have your iPhone or something, but they will stop you from filming past that line outside the Vatican or something like that. But they toured it a bunch of times, and so they kind of knew what they were doing. But yeah, like, a
little more welcoming
the movie
than
magic
other religious institutions.
The movie magic around all that stuff, where you go like when I watch it, and of course I'm no expert on the Vatican, you're like, these are real places and they're really in there. It's so convincing, in a way that you're like, yeah, that's probably what the Vatican is, right?
Okay, so I was surprised by how much lack of Vatican-esque stuff there was in this movie, to be honest, because all of the scenes where they voted, of course, and they did like CGI for the ceiling for the Sistine Chapel,
the actual
and they edited the heck out of the lighting for all those scenes to make it look darker.
What lighting?
Yeah, exactly right.
Don't get me started on another movie that I couldn't see.
It's true.
So frustrating.
It's true.
Stop doing that.
Switch the settings on your TV and just.
I did.
Battle
and then
of the
I went
Bastards.
and sat by a window.
Yeah. Oh, it's the worst. So the. I just lost my thought. I'm so sorry. No, you're good.
It wasn't as
my mini rant.
Oh, no, these.
It wasn't as Vatican-y as you thought.
It was all these barren halls, barren rooms, streets barren, and honestly, one time
was supposed to be there.
One time I looked at the wall painting, and it was the same painting I lived at in China, like the two-tone dark paint on the bottom, and like that communist Russian, Mongolian, Chinese style of housing. I'm like, oh my goodness, this feels like I'm in these stale buildings that are just cement. And obviously
they had a lot of extra paint of those colors.
They did that on purpose, I'm sure, to not just be in the pretty, like, historic things, but to be these very drab. So you're not distracted probably by all the shiny pretty.
Yeah.
And
I
just
think
to direct it.
The dorm area, I don't know if that's what you're talking about specifically, is supposedly kind of like that. And
the dorm,
they did like
food,
is it Martha's
all of them.
Something?
They did marble. Like, so if you look in the dorms, while they look kind of humble in terms of furnishings, everything's really nice actually in the movie. Like marble walls, where I think in the real thing it's just a flat paint or something. And so there is this kind of like glossiness, like false humbleness or something, right? Like, I only have this bed.
That's an interesting
and
point
this
of view.
thing, but if you look at them, they're really nice, and the walls really nice or whatever.
No, they're built to last.
And so I don't think that's realistic. And similarly, the other thing I learned was, like, with all their outfits, they're not accurate
to this era
per se.
Color-wise,
it's
they're
like
not.
And it's like an impression of what it's supposed to look like, but they sew them different and the materials are different to make them all a little bit fancier.
Well, and it seemed like each group kind of chose their own, there's like flying their colors, like this is the conservative way you wear this, and this is the more liberal or the newer.
Well, and they all got their own crosses and, to kind of give each cardinal their thing. But that to me was, I don't know, really interesting, because to me the typical way would be like, well, what do they look like? And you just make that.
But this
impressionistic version of the entire Vatican, I liked, like, this is a movie, this isn't reality, let's play with that a little bit and make things vibrant and how we want, or you know,
and
like,
they toned down the color and made it a prettier red, which is an older version, not what they use today, because it's just more pleasing.
15th and 16th century, if you want to know about home. That's when that's the era which they're trying to style it after, according to the costume director.
Yes.
But it's I like that a lot. And then you also kind of go, and this is where it's like the fascinating part, and then you wonder, like, why do we still do this? All of the outfits. And it's like, why do they do that again? You know, like, it's so over the top.
Gorgeous, yeah.
But also, that's really interesting to me, you know, and like many religions have a lot of
that whole picture with the umbrellas and them in their outfits.
Oh,
it's so Handmaid's Tale kind of looking.
Yeah.
We're
it's
like,
dope, though.
It's like ominous.
Yeah.
It's
sterile.
The visuals to me were really cool. And then there's the weird stuff, like when Isabella Rossellini has taken the other nun into the room, and the dean comes in to interview her. There's just like kind of this old crappy-ish computer, you know, like this, like,
well, and
what
felt
is very
Isabella
much like a
Rossellini
secretary
been doing it at? What has she been doing at that computer? Like, it doesn't...
Well, you know, they're probably buying supplies or whatever, right? Whatever dumb, mundane, logistical things. And it's like, here's just kind of a cruddy computer.
Yeah.
In the Vatican just to do work on. That was just really funny to me. Like, outside this cafeteria like place, there's this little office with a dumb computer. I don't know, that kind of stuff struck me as
it also
interesting.
Just definitely leaves it to the imagination of what year this could have been, you know, like, this isn't necessarily 2024.
Right. Yeah. Is that a new computer, or is that 20-year-old computer?
Right. But the political talk that they're using is very now.
Yeah.
The issue.
Well, and probably if I looked at the vans they were shuttled around in, I guess I could probably pull a year out. But
yeah, they're pretty new.
Yeah.
New camera. Most of our films are filmed by the Arri Alexas. That's like the standard, the LF, and all these. Like, but this one's filmed with red, which is kind of a fun. It's still, $30,000 camera, or whatever, but it's more known for the darker movies. Sorry, Mariah.
I just want to see. What I'm watching.
I know the red.
What did you think?
House of the
That's
Dragon.
the other bit.
Yeah.
People.
Yep.
Yeah. The like auditorium, like the blue seated auditorium with that big.
I like the
movie,
spotlight.
The movie theater.
Piece. I liked that.
Yeah.
Because
it's
then
like,
you
what
just
is this room?
Like, otherwise you're looking at a bunch of empty seats. Like, I understand the point of the light focused into that situation, but almost everything else. I mean, there's just so many times where you're like, why can't I see? I see that there are two tiny weak lamps in the room, and that's probably all you're gonna get. But it's so frustrating.
But
I just wanted a little more.
So, but that's not. Those are just practicals. They still light the heck out of it. Then they just bring it down, like, because it was as we talked about, it's heavily color graded. Yeah. They added darkness all over the place in post. They were just adding shadows so that you only saw the faces, which was
dislike.
Dynamic.
Or you didn't even see the faces. That's the thing. It's like you're not getting that much.
I didn't notice that on my TV.
Yeah, I watched.
And I watched it on two different screens and tried to adjust for myself.
I did turn up the contrast quite a bit. But I know
the other thing visually, I think there's the directing to when I thought like the 5 voting were interesting because we got sort of different flavors and mindsets at each vote. And then they had that really cool shot of all the current candidates in like isolation. You kind of jump around and see everyone basically sitting by themselves. I thought there's a lot of cool just imagery throughout this that made it a really good looking documentary about how you pick a pope kind of thing. And like there was just some stylization to it, right? Like obviously they weren't sitting by themselves, but it was a cool look at how isolating maybe it becomes to be a candidate. for this, highest religious office. And I don't know. I felt really taken care of by the craftsmanship of this movie.
Agree.
Right. You're never like,
No.
That was pretty. I think the one thing, the exploding window, I thought was like,
happened without any.
I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Well, remember they also
and then they all just had dust on themselves for a while.
For a while, that was a funny scene.
And
it was like you wouldn't go like,
yeah,
a little bit of this.
For a second, I almost was thinking he was in some sort of dream sequence, like that wasn't even actually happening. Like maybe he was just envisioning it. Playing out badly, and I was like, wait, what's the reality here? And then the fact that they're sitting there talking with dust all over their shoulders.
Yeah. Well, and then I saw behind the scenes shot of some costume person or whatever, like dusting all of them, and I thought, okay. Like more dust. Bring in the dusting woman.
If I could
align like around like this perfectly around their chest, like the same way.
Just
I'm
the
like,
shoulders,
okay,
just the
come on
shoulders.
now.
And just make sure it's on your little.
Here.
That was pretty.
Your Catholic yarmulke.
Throw it
I don't know what those are called.
Just away. I don't know either.
What's the Catholic yarmulke called?
Okay, research team.
The beanie.
Should we jump into fun
it's a
facts?
Teeny weeny beanie.
Or we can jump into some fun facts.
Okay.
Catholic yarmulke. A zucchetto.
Oh, I got a
that's a
Mitri.
name.
MITRE is what I got.
Liturgical headdress.
Oh, it's different though.
That's
the
pointy
big one.
hat.
That's the pointy one.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about the little.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Little cap, which I believe is a
zucchetto mitre beretta. There's three.
Meaning small gourd.
Ooh, that makes sense. Maybe that's what it was originally.
I guess those. It looks like the top of a pumpkin cut off.
Nice. All right. Yeah. Okay. Fun facts. What do you guys got? Nothing, huh? Bummer.
A good one. I mean, there's honestly not as many. Newer movies are harder.
They are. Agreed.
Boring movies are hard too.
This is great until this is not boring for a lot of it.
Jesus, Cardinal Jesus Benitez.
Yes, Cardinal Jesus Benitez, yes.
Yeah, this is the best fun.
Until 2020, worked as
an architect.
Yeah, an architect.
Oh.
And then when he got out of that, thought, I kind of want to try acting. And he took some classes.
Yeah.
And then there was a casting call in like Vancouver. And so he applied and got the gig. So this is like his first
first feature film. He basically waited till his kids got out of school and was like, I'm going to try something new.
That's so cool.
He did a great job.
Nice. And, they were looking for a fresh face and stuff. So he'd have this unknown quality. I thought he did a good job being a Jesus.
Yeah, no, he did. He was I just thought there's so many interesting things they could have done with it. With the interaction between him and Ray Fiennes' character, I just felt like, that would have been such a fun,
I do love their conversation where he's like, can you stop voting for me? And he's like, you want me to vote? Like
great
the whole
scene.
logic, like everything he said was just like, wow,
And then, but then it feels weird at the end because then it
just kind of gives you.
I'm going back to Game of Thrones.
I think it's supposed to give you that whole last minute, like, oh no, what did I do? Like I got so excited and just blindly followed this guy who spoke eloquently, and then oh no, and then actually, it's probably just fine.
That's also, I think, kind of realistic, maybe unfulfilling story-wise, but the idea that you just get swept up with this. Hot new voice, and you know all the, because I think in the context of the movie too, and these were all defended a little bit, like the idea of voting for this guy when you know nothing about him. They knew about the other cardinals, and what they knew wasn't great.
Yeah, they knew what
right,
they
and
didn't
so you kind of
go. They didn't want Tremblay. They didn't want.
Yeah, and this cardinal worked in the worst places, to be a cardinal in the world, and so it built up a pedigree that you already got to vote for somebody. Nobody's perfect, and so they took this chance of sorts based on this, speech. Because again, they talked about, I think it's Benedict maybe did a homily that got him voted in, and maybe John Paul II did an impromptu speech or something. that got him voted in.
It charmed
so those
everybody.
two things.
Pat, you're not convincing me. They already knew who these people were. They were not just some random person who showed up off the streets.
Right. They've been at
Well,
it.
they don't know.
Why are we still having this conversation?
knows
You're not going to win me over here. I'm already.
I don't think
because we're talking about the suspension of our disbelief.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we see
Historically-
some similarities
There
to
we go.
reality to make
Historically-
it
It's
prove the
Manchurian
point.
Candidate.
the Cardinals aren't all sitting there chatting it up with each other. They
No, they're
get together
all from
like
different,
never.
Yeah, they're all from different countries. Nobody is around. I mean, they obviously, some of them knew each other pretty well, but
Yes. Well,
They've all been around the
or
Catholic
well
Church
enough
for
to
a
know
fair
that-
amount.
Well enough to know that I don't want that guy to be Pope.
Guys, I hear what you're saying.
yeah.
I'm just not buying it.
That's fine. That's fine. Again, I'm arguing it knowing I don't fully buy all of it either.
No, it's suspension
I don't think
of
it's
disbelief.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as crazy as it could have been.
No.
For as vanilla as this movie is, it sure was.
I don't know if
entertaining,
vanilla is
I
not the right
guess. It
word for the
held-
whole movie. It's just
The plot was vanilla.
It's 3/4 of a
there is
great
no
movie.
plot, so it can't be vanilla.
The plot is
Get a new
picking
Pope.
a pope.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to the grocery store and I have to pick out a new thing of. No, you're right.
It's
You're right.
more
I'll give you
exciting.
that. It's more. No, it was great. It felt like a courtroom drama. This was a courtroom drama to me. Like it was a good. It was
Yes,
12 Angry Men.
100%.
It was 12 Angry Men. It was all these other ones. No, it's a great. This is what.
But we don't get a gratifying verdict.
Yeah, it's a very
You know.
a very pretty bottle episode. You know what I mean? A
Yeah.
real
Yes,
pretty
yes.
bottle episode.
Yeah.
So
like kind of Joan of Arc without the fire at the end.
too bad.
Like a lot
That'd
of
have been more
a lot
interesting.
of hallways and
If they would have
discussions.
killed Jesus, then that would have been more interesting in the end. But they didn't. They just let him rule.
A murder in the Vatican.
That would have been way cooler.
You're talking my language.
Now
Oh,
we're talking.
man. If
That
Agatha
would have been
Christie
so
had
much
written,
more interesting.
Is there an Agatha Christie that's murder in the
I
Vatican?
think
There
that's
should be.
hard to pull that one off.
Probably not.
Yeah,
I bet if she would have
She's-
lived longer.
She,
she
you know
could
why?
have done
Because
it.
she's Anglican. There's no way they're gonna let a British person write about. Sorry, it's just one of the first Protestant
Well.
people. Do you?
I
Stephen
don't know how
King,
fun
it's
these
on
facts
you
are,
now.
but speaking of that, in the book, Lawrence is Italian and not named Lawrence. And
Oh.
Bellini is also Italian and not quite so liberal. I don't think there are any Americans in the book.
Oh, and the
And
Jesus
then
guy is actually
Benitez-
from Baghdad, but they
Yes.
switched it to
Well,
Afghanistan
sure, you gotta
to
go
make it
more
more
modern.
relevant.
Yep. And he's Filipino instead of Mexican or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Minor things.
I don't know.
But I think
I don't
probably
know
the
what- yeah, that might have just
nomination
been
for
based off
best
casting.
adaptation is probably because it stayed pretty true to the story in the book.
Yeah,
I'd
and I think,
imagine.
this.
Yeah,
I know we're
assume
supposed to
too.
do fun facts. I
Yeah.
honestly don't have that many that we didn't talk about. I mean, I guess to me, Seth, you already mentioned it. Like the Sistine Chapel was only present up to like 20 feet or something, and then everything else was sort of a green screen thing. It's funny without seeing, God and David touching hands.
Yeah,
I
that
didn't
was
recognize it
interesting.
as
Yeah,
the
for
Sistine
sure.
Chapel
Mm-hmm.
right away, right?
Well, I think they
You're like,
spend
this
more.
is some
I just think they spend so much
chapel.
much more time in the sequestered Martha's where they eat and the apartments are. And
Yeah.
that was
But they very
similar
deliberately-
with a little more security measures than actually exist, at least since the last Pope decision.
Yeah. They did deliberately show us part of the mural, but it was not the main one we're all used to seeing in, art books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the turtles. It's like, why are there
Oh,
turtles
yeah.
in there?
That was good.
I do like that part of
Um,
the story. He says it a little bit.
Yeah, I believe part of it was turtles can be interpreted a bunch of ways as like rebirth or wisdom, and so it was like, what do the turtles mean to you? Like, and apparently there are maybe turtles in the Vatican, but it wasn't.
Yeah, the story in the movie was that somebody got them from somewhere, but and they're cool, but they keep
Angola
wandering
or
off.
something?
Yeah, they keep wandering off into the road and to the
getting themselves killed.
They're kind of
and it's like,
nuisance.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Should you have exotic animals here at the Vatican?
Yeah.
That seems weird.
Other fun things is the crystal bachette. You have to play this weird, is what the soundtrack was made on. You should look at that.
Right.
Maybe I'll throw the picture of that up there because it looks like some sort of like weird science experiment gone wrong. And you have to play with wet hands, and it's got that. Interstellar used the same instrument. It's got that kind of weird sort
it's
of
exactly
sound to
what
it.
it sounds like, that ominous.
Very cool.
Which makes more sense as to why the soundtrack is the way it is.
Yes.
Because at first
fun.
you're just like, why is this a horror story
and
score?
I was like, this makes it so much better.
It does. It adds. I mean, it adds to
really
it for
liked
sure,
it.
but it also makes you more aware that there's actually nothing that dramatic or intense happening right now, and so you're like also noticing like, man, they're really trying to add some tension.
It would be interesting.
There's
to
an
watch
inner
this
turmoil. So it's the same composer as All Quiet on the Western Front, which Edward Berger won.
Also, Edward Berger also directed.
Yeah, Best International Film last year, and
because he's.
I don't know if you can remember that score. That's got like this, whoa, thing.
Yeah.
Like it is, and it's a war movie, and so maybe more appropriate, but it's really stark with just these heavy hits of this incredible sound, and you're like, oh my goodness. So that definitely a common theme, like let's just ratchet up some intensity here. But I thought, again, I think anybody could quibble with the end, understandably, but the rest of the movie is pretty darn good. And the other stuff that I mentioned earlier, like that I just didn't all come out, was around what the Pope had set up. Like Stanley Tucci mentions playing chess with the Pope a lot, and like he was always 8 moves ahead. And then you kind of realize, like when John Lithgow was like, well, the Pope told me to bring that person. It's like, these are all things
sounded legit. Yeah, that was great.
Pope set up to happen.
Oh, John Lithgow.
Because he was like, I don't want that guy to be the Pope. I want Benitez to be the Pope. And I liked that, but they kind of didn't. They sort of just let that be a thing. If you want to pick that up, that's fine. They didn't like, there was no flashback to like, all these moments lead me to realize, it was Kaiser Sose. It's like, no, it's just if you want to realize the Pope probably did all this, you can. And otherwise, who cares?
I like to think that he knew how this was partially going to play out, and he set everybody up like chess pieces to take their part and have this whole play out so that the ending came out the way he wanted it to. I think that
didn't let the dean
certainly
retire,
makes the idea of the movie way better. So hopefully that was the intention. Does that help you? Does that help you, Seth?
No, I mean I'm where I am. I'm a
grumpy old.
I'm a grumpy old man. But again, like
I think it's 85% a great movie, and then
it's because I love the movie so much that I felt like I
did still like it despite the complaints. I really did like.
I just felt like it didn't treat us like intelligent human beings at the end. I just felt it just told us how to think. And I hate that.
Well, I learned.
It treated us like we were intelligent humans the whole time until the end. And I was so mad about that because they just literally had monologue, and then dialogue. And I was like, come on, you showed all this other stuff. And that's where and this is the problem I have with a lot of movies that just get lazy and just do it that way. Because the best movies show you it without having to tell you it. And they didn't do that.
But this was a documentary. And you're supposed to learn what to do.
This is real.
Good. This is how it works.
Couple things I felt going in.
Sorry.
The couple things I felt like I knew about this. There was a YouTube short by CPG Gray says How to Become Pope. It came out in 2013. I must have watched that thing 100 times. It's a hilarious little cartoon. So it's like, so you want to be Pope. This is what you got to do. And it gives you a step-by-step. So the whole time.
See, I never watched that.
It's
if I'd
hilarious.
watched that, I would have thought this movie was even more.
I'll put a link down there. It's like, first you have to be born to a certain population. That's right. Sorry, girls, you're out. Next, you got to be Catholic. All right. And not to say that the Pope necessarily has to be a cardinal, but they almost never vote someone who's not cardinal. So how do you become a cardinal? And then it goes step by step on how to become a cardinal.
One of the fun facts that I did learn was that there's been 5
non-cardinal popes.
No, in secret
Pectore.
Yeah, popes that have been elected.
So
it's not out of the realm of possibilities that this unknown
Pat
guy
been trying to tell us.
could have been elected.
Pat's been trying to tell us.
In theory, the other stuff I was reading about that was being made a cardinal in pectore means in the heart, and they do that for cardinals in hostile territories for religious people to be. It's why, like, if you're as Seth knows, if you're a missionary in a country, you do not say you're a missionary in that country because it's not safe. And so if someone who was in Baghdad or Kabul preaching Christianity, you would not out them for the world. But it's not typical that only the Pope would know. Yeah. Because in the situation, like in the movie, if the Pope died and no one else knew this person was in pectore, it would invalidate it. Basically be like, well, that didn't happen then because no one else knew.
Right, because he hadn't actually been listed by then, so it should have been null and void.
Or even just that other people in the inner workings of the Vatican, because it's more an external thing. Like, we don't want, the Afghani government or something to know
for sure
this.
Yeah,
we don't put it on your website, but other people would know, like the dean, to be like, yes, that's a real cardinal when he comes here. But yeah, so it's realistic-ish, but not super realistic. Also, the thing in Chenze, or Innocent, was what he picked his name to be, and I thought that's a crazy name. He was like Innocent the 14th or something.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's a name people pick. I feel like we've had.
I feel like Innocent
Johns
the 5th or
Pauls
the 10th
and John Paul's
was pretty popular.
I knew. Yeah,
Which one was it? The 5th or the 10th?
You knew that one.
Yeah, I knew it was, especially since he was a Spanish speaking, it's more common I've seen. Yeah, I know. I was
not the first, but but there's a lot of Johns.
Yeah,
and Paul.
As if you've named your son, it's hard to find creative male names. There's just not as many. There's way more female names. Let's just be real right now.
But I thought that was maybe more dramatic than it was. But I was like, oh no, this is a commonly used Pope name.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, should we get to the reason why we're here? Awards.
Why are we here?
Awards. Does this win awards? I have a couple thoughts here off the boot, and I've been thinking about it because some recent news came about the frontrunner that has been getting some flack. So at this moment, I'm not sure when this podcast will be released, but The Brutalist was the one who won the Golden Globes for the Best Picture. Recently, they've been getting some flack because of the AI help they had for their
on Adrian Brody?
On Adrian Brody, I think both. I think Adrian Brody and obviously not whatever.
Wild.
Yeah, and so people are. We'll see what that's.
Wild that they used it, or wild that that's suddenly a skepticism.
No, that they used it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my.
But this is just the beginning, because going forward, this is going to happen more and more.
Okay. So
yeah.
Well, yeah.
But you're not going to like it.
We'll get to that because I use AI all the time for stuff, but we're not going to talk about it. Shoot, maybe I'll just AI you guys out this one. No. My new guest star is Tom Cruise. That'd be so good.
Dogman, you've got a new movie coming out.
Really?
However he talks. We'll find out in a week.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So Ralph Rafe Fiennes. My gosh, I've watched so many of his movies. I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry, Rafe.
Voldemort.
Don't put a spell on me. Is a dark horse for winning Best Actor, in my opinion, right now. he's the dark horse to win it because
I'd be cool with it at this
Adrian
point.
Brody, if he doesn't get it because of all the spec, I think he's next.
Yeah,
up.
it wasn't all his
And
acting.
don't get me wrong, you'll hear in a few weeks.
So the AI took over his acting, piece, not just
when
how
he's
he
speaking
looked.
when he's speaking Hungarian, they replace things to make him sound more authentically Hungarian.
Which,
well, that's shady.
Well,
it's weird.
Did Rolf?
It's weird.
Did Rafe speak all of his Latin?
He had to learn Latin and Italian
and Spanish
for this movie.
and Italian. Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably spoke it. Yeah. So that was legit.
And who cares if it was bad?
So that's my
And
first.
he's a parcel tongue. So he can talk to snakes.
Naturally, though, that just came naturally.
That's
He's
not
wearing
AI.
a prosthetic the whole movie, you know?
Yeah.
Doesn't even have a nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I
good
mean,
one.
this is
crazier than Maestro.
give him the
This
Oscar
is worse.
now.
They should be talking about this
Right
like they talked about
now.
Maestro.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he's my dark horse for best actor because of the recent scandal. That's my
And
take.
he's been potentially slighted a few times.
Yes, so he's due.
English
and
patient.
I think Timothée Chalamet is the man in that
And-
movie. So
And Schindler's List, Best Supporting.
oh yeah,
So like, there's been times where it's like,
so I
he
would
maybe
be
coulda, shoulda won, and so I could see the Academy being like,
not
he's
sad
great.
if
Let's
he
get
won
it
it
to
here.
him.
So that would be my dark horse for best actor. So here's an award that's not given at the Oscars that I think is a dope award. What is it from? It is from the Washington D.C. Area Film Critics. They give an award for the best ensemble.
Oh, I saw that.
It's so
That's
good.
cool.
So like you have these movies that like, and they're hilariously like good. So I'm just gonna go through the list starting at 2004, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. 2005, Pride and Prejudice. 2006, Little Miss Sunshine. 2007, No Country for Old Men. 2008, Doubt. 2009, Hurt Locker. 2010, The Town. 2011, Bridesmaids. 2012, Les Mis. 2013, 12 Years a Slave. 2014, Birdman. Spotlight. Hell or High Water, which got no love but had an incredible cast as a
Great
whole. 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. The Favorite.
Yeah.
Knives Out, because it's never going to win a real Oscar, but that's a dope thing to have. One Night Miami, I don't know that one. And then Mask, Glass Onion again, then Oppenheimer. I think this movie would be a great one for ensemble cast.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a very fun. Anyways, that's an award I wish they would have at the Oscars because I think it's a very fun. Like, hey, this guy was really good in this. Like Elvis got nominated.
Dune Part 2. could
Exactly
be a
right.
good
Right.
candidate for
And-
that, too.
Right.
And you could almost go and
Also the budget that goes into big ensemble, amazing ensemble
Exactly.
cast too. That doesn't necessarily mean it's Oppenheimer, but it's
Yeah.
well, there's no way they paid these guys
It
what
was
they're worth because this was
No,
only
no.
20 million. So these guys
Right.
probably worked for scale. But then like Wicked's obviously not going to get it because it's obviously 2 stars and the rest are around them. So that's why I think that's such a fun thing. So this was one of those ones where I'm like, everyone kind of punched their weight. Now I'll give it to you.
I
as-
feel like Barbie could have got a good ensemble too.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'll see. So, anyways, that's a very fun one. That would be a good argument for. So those are my 2, and then
Yeah.
of course I think it could win score because I think the score is insane in this.
It's cool.
But I think Trent.
it's really
I still
cool.
think Trent. Did Trent Reznor get nominated again for Challengers? Okay, so I still think Trent Reznor is going to win. But this
Oh, did he actually? Sorry,
I don't
I'm
know.
nodding as if like, of course he did.
oh no, I didn't know. So let's see.
But
I'll look that up. But this is also my dark horse for that.
No. He did not. We've got Amelia Perez, Conclave, The Wild Robot, Wicked, and The Brutalist for Best Original Score.
Yeah. So I haven't heard the Brutalist.
How can Wicked have a Best Original Score?
I don't know.
It's
That
not
makes
original
no sense
at
at
all.
all.
That doesn't make sense.
Nope. Anyways, so this
Is
would
it
be
because
my.
it was never used in a movie before?
That doesn't make sense either. Anyways, I don't know how this works. So this would be my dark horse for best actor and for score. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think.
I feel like adapted
I think it's-
screenplay, which it is nominated for, could
Who's
be
it up
there.
against? You guys gotta see
Amelia
that one.
Perez, Sing Sing, A Complete Unknown, and Nickel Boys.
Oh yeah, I could win that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely win
Good.
that.
It'd be one night. I mean, I
Good.
didn't read the book, but I imagine it was a good
Yeah,
adaptation.
I assume so as well.
From what I hear, it's a big departure from the book.
Yeah.
You know?
All right.
I don't think it'll win the craft ones it's in, like costume.
Yeah, just because
production design.
Yeah.
But it's good.
It's good, but it's not.
You know.
Yeah. Since we know what we know about the other movies, it'd be hard to compete. I think.
At this point, I'm gonna give it to Ralph Fiennes. I hope that'll be my hope.
That'd be a fun one.
And until I see the other ones.
I know, and they were like, Adrian Brody, who cares if he doesn't speak Hungarian?
blow,
He's still the best.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we're gonna have that
Right out of the
conversation
water.
soon.
Oh, he's got enough acclaim.
But Conclave is Ralph Fiennes. Like that. It's just he's the movie. It's just I can't stop watching him. So, anyways,
he does great.
Pat, who do you think? What's it gonna do? Win anything? Win nothing?
I bet it won't win anything, but I would be happy knowing what I know now. If Ralph Fiennes won. Also, what a name, Rafe. And he spells it Ralph.
I literally thought it was Ray Fiennes, and I just
Rafe
thought it was spelled with
Joseph.
R-E-I.
That's the thing that's crazy. It's like you got one easy to pronounce brother, and then you've got
that's
Rafe.
true. Just to mess with us.
Both amazing actors.
Both amazing. I mean, Rafe kind of.
Are they actually brothers? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Handmaid's
I think I
Tale.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Shakespeare
I mean, I know.
Seth's favorite
Oh
movie.
my gosh,
I mean, it is the same. I guess they look kind of like each other.
the worst.
They don't look a lot like each other, but they're both
No,
great
but a little.
actors. I don't know if they're like 100% brothers.
No, siblings. Right
They
in
are?
there.
Right in there. Look at that, guys.
Also, there's a Magnus in the Fiennes family.
Ah,
so that's,
Now
Magnus.
we're talking. That's a name.
yeah, I think Rafe's probably got the best chance, and otherwise, it may be score, but I don't know. There's two musicals in the score category.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough one to win over a musical, I think, with scores.
It is awkward if you're the musical and you don't win anything musical. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I watched this movie. And I obviously have my gripes, but man, the performances were worth the. And it's such a.
It should have been so boring, and
It should have been horrible, but it was
good.
You were in. Like I figured I was going to be like falling.
It wasn't a snooze fest. I was still happy to watch all the way through. I just wasn't overwhelmed with tension or.
This is more of a.
I don't know what it is.
No, it was.
But
It was good.
It was good.
It got the Kimberly seal of approval. She liked it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's impressive.
That is impressive.
She has not liked everything I've watched for last
I can only imagine.
Out of the three movies, this is not one of the ones I fell asleep to. So let's just put it that way. Sorry.
It helps it's short.
Yeah, it's short. I mean,
and yeah, like it was compelling. Despite its flaws,
I've been
compelling.
singing along with Wicked songs, despite how bored I get when watching the movie. I guess I'll just never be popular.
You would not believe the feed of Wicked stuff that's on my Instagram right now.
It's insane.
I can't get away from it.
I didn't even talk to you guys really about all the noms, but we can do it after the podcast.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the what?
Post podcast nom chat.
So you should land the plane and then tangent.
Yeah,
guys, this is Conclave. You can watch it. It's good.
Yeah.
You might remember in a couple years.
You will watch worse stuff this Oscar season.
You don't have to hide it from your family. Okay. It's not like one of those sweary, violent,
What's better,
sexual things.
Two Popes or Conclave?
I didn't watch Two Popes.
Yeah, okay. Just checking. All right.
What did he whisper?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Haven't seen it.
All right. I guess I'm the one who saw both of them.
Yeah, Conclave's
I guess I'll say Two Popes just to be different.
Okay.
Guys, my name's Seth.
Mariah.
Pat.
And it's award season, and we got more award-winning movies coming at ya. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Take care, guys. Bye.
Night-night.
Bye.